This is 5 on 20 News. We've got the news of the day, and the newscasters are gay. With Sean Madrid
and Luke Goodhart, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. First, local headlines.
The Arizona Court of Appeals has ruled that local state officials cannot use federal law to deny marijuana dispensaries. Judge Don Kessler said that Maricopa attorney Bill Montgomery has no right to deny the 2010 law that made medical marijuana legal in the state. Montgomery has been trying to stop a dispensary from opening in Sun City. The dispensary, called White Mountain Health, sought all necessary documents to set up the shop. Montgomery had instructed county officials not to respond and claimed that they would be violating federal laws if they worked further with White Mountain Health. He said that anything the state does will not trump federal law. But now, Judge Kessler has ruled that there's nothing in the Controlled Substances Act that prohibits states from having their own drug laws. He also said that since the state voted for the law, this shields citizens from federal laws opposed to the action. Kessler pointed out a 2015 law that forbids federal money from being used to prosecute Arizona's medical marijuana laws. Finally, Kessler ended the case by dropping the mic and returning home to a fat blunt to treat the anxiety he has from suffering damn fools all day, every day.
And federal prosecutors are taking a district judge to decide whether or not former Sheriff Joe Arpaio will be charged with criminal contempt. The Justice Department is calling on Judge Susan Bolton to hold a bench trial for Arpaio rather than let a jury decide his fate. Bench trials rely on the judge's ruling exclusively. Arpaio's attorney is seeking a jury trial as he hopes Maricopa County's conservative community will be more kind to old racist Joe. Arpaio is charged with disobeying a court order to stop his immigration patrols, which have been described as a form of racial profiling. Arpaio has admitted to the contempt charges, but says he disobeyed the order unintentionally. He claims that he greets all of his friends with the question, "Where's your papers?" and his technique wasn't intended to offend.
Arizona will stop using a particular drug for lethal injections. According to a settlement with death row inmates' lawyers, the state will discontinue using the sedative midazolam. Midazolam is similar to Valium, but critics say that it isn't strong enough to use during executions because it doesn't achieve surgical levels of anesthesia. Various states have been urged to stop using the drug after European and U.S. pharmaceutical makers banned the substance. Yes, even Pfizer said that the stuff was no good. The drug is still used in Arizona, Ohio, and Oklahoma, where witnesses claim they've seen inmates twisting in pain before being put to death. The Eighth Amendment forbids cruel and unusual punishment, guaranteeing that someone committed to death row will be anesthetized. Midazolam was used in Arizona's last execution in 2014, where murderer Joseph Wood was seen gasping for air after receiving 15 rounds of injections. It might be difficult to have sympathy for a murderer, but that's no excuse to violate the Constitution.
The San Carlos Apache Council and environmentalist groups are objecting to a planned mine at Oak Flat. The tribe claims that the mine will run through tribal lands, and environmentalists say that it will disrupt local vegetation and wildlife. Resolution Copper is legally allowed to mine the area as of right now. Resolution Copper is a joint venture by Rio Tinto, one of the world's largest metals and mining corporations, and BHP Billiton, a Melbourne-based mining, metals, and petroleum company. Their right to mine was passed as part of the National Defense Authorization Act. The resolution mainly concerns military matters, but Senator John McCain also inserted language to allow mining. The bill called for a land exchange involving areas across Arizona in return for the ability to mine at Oak Flat. The mine is projected to affect about 7,000 acres of land, which will need to be appraised before the operations begin. Resolution Copper says that the mine will take about 10 years to build, but will eventually provide 52,000 jobs and bring billions into the economy. San Carlos Apache Council members say that the mine will be located on what they consider to be a religious site. The flats are referenced in their songs, rituals, and teachings. One leader compared it to tearing down a preserved church in Europe. But Resolution Copper knows that the only true religion these days has a frowning dead president as its sacred symbol.
Arizona will be the first to add cursive writing to its state curriculum. The addition will take effect in 2018. This comes as part of an attempt to change the state's Common Core standards, which apparently don't address the urgent need for fancy writing. Cursive has become a weird obsession by some on the right who claim that cursive writing is disappearing along with traditional culture. And they make these complaints, ironically, in print on a screen. But there will be more changes to Common Core coming soon, including 48% of the ELA standards and 40% of the math standards. Local school boards will now be able to determine which types of reading passages will be included on state tests. Currently, 70% of reading is informational, while 30% is fiction. Another change will require second graders to memorize the sums of two one-digit numbers, and for third graders to memorize multiplication and division tables through 10 times 10. Adults in Arizona will still be allowed to be as dumb as they please.
And I wanted to take a moment to talk about the program you're watching right now. Here at 5 on 20, we are undertaking a new kind of citizen journalism. We are going to give you the news as we see it. And we want more people to speak up with us. We need writers, hosts, anchors, camera people, sound people, the whole gamut. The times require a new way of informing ourselves. So join us. Do it now. Email us at info@creativetucson.org to get involved. And if you think there's a story we're missing, a person we should interview, an upcoming event we should cover, or have any news tips for us, shoot an email to info@creativetucson.org. We are here for you, and we want to cover all stories from all points of views. So don't be strangers. Now in national and international news.
In Hail Mary pass to stave off Donald Trump's vow to destroy our environment, President Obama has banned offshore drilling in portions of the Arctic and Atlantic Oceans. To prevent his measure from being trumped, Obama relied on a 63-year-old law that will prevent the future leasing of offshore drilling rights. While Trump vowed to reverse all of Obama's environmental regulations, this move would be difficult to erase without running into legal hurdles. Offshore drilling will no longer be allowed in the U.S. portions of the Chukchi Sea shared with Russia and most of the Beaufort Sea. Obama cited protection for marine animals, ecological resources, and native populations as reasons for the law, which he has dubbed the Miss Me Yet Resolution. The U.S. also declared 31 canyons located off of the Atlantic coast off limits from offshore drilling. On the same day, Canada also announced that it will stop offshore drilling exploration in the Arctic waters. While it would be difficult for Trump to overturn this law, it's not entirely impossible. Obama's action can't be overturned by executive action, but it can be affected by a change of law. This would require Democrats to support the law change, along with pro-environmental Republicans. Yes, pro-environment Republicans do exist, though they are an endangered species. For now, it looks as though at least one area of the country won't be looking like an abandoned factory in a few years.
A manhunt has been launched across Europe in the wake of a terrorist attack in Berlin. 12 people were killed and 48 injured when a lorry barreled through a crowd in a popular Christmas market on Monday. A suspicious person was initially arrested near the incident, but was released yesterday due to insufficient evidence. Anis Amri, a 23-year-old from Tunisia, has now been identified as the suspect, and he remains at large. Amri had been under German surveillance last year and is believed to be armed and dangerous, but may be injured. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack, calling the attacker a soldier of the Islamic State. But U.S. officials have been unable to verify the ISIS claims. Often, ISIS will take credit for attacks influenced by the group, such as the Pulse nightclub shootings in Orlando. In that case, the attacker was not personally connected with ISIS, but subscribed to ideology influenced by the terrorist group.
The murder rate in the U.S. is expected to rise another 16% this year, but the increase is unevenly distributed. The majority of the sharp increase can be tracked to Chicago, which is experiencing a surge in violence. The city had 470 murders in 2015 and already has had 732 in 2016. Chicago accounts for over 45% of the rise in killings across the country. The murder rate is still well below the highs of the 1990s. According to a report by the Brennan Center, overall crime is still low by historical standards. Even with Chicago's numbers, the total amount of murders in the U.S. was just under 16,000, the same as it was in 2009. One of the report's authors took Donald Trump to task, criticizing him for saying that murders are rising in the inner city. Amos Grawert says that overall crime in America's inner cities is going down. This includes Baltimore, which Trump had singled out, although the city's homicide rate actually fell by 6.1% in 2016. Grawert said that Trump is generalizing a whole culture with his words and being disingenuous. She also called out a statement by Trump where he claimed that murders have gone up in New York City. In reality, New York's crime rate has fallen way below the highs of the 1990s, when more than 2,000 people were killed each year. This year, the number was even lower than last year, with 336 murders. But according to the Trump logic, facts should never stand in the way of a good soundbite.
The Pentagon has quietly discontinued a program that put blast gauges on the uniforms of combat troops in Afghanistan. The blast gauges were meant to detect brain injuries, which have been a common problem for soldiers fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. Brain injuries are often caused by blast charges from explosives. While the gauges worked, they turned out to work a little too well. Military officials found that soldiers were experiencing blast charges not just from explosives, but also from their own weapons. In one case, a young soldier experienced extreme charges from firing a rocket-propelled grenade launcher and then suffered headaches afterwards. One expert said that soldiers experience 30 to 300 blast exposures multiple days per week. If the program were to continue, then it was likely that the Pentagon could face serious lawsuits by soldiers who come back from war with brain injuries caused by firing their military-issued weapons. The cumulative effect is similar to brain injuries in the NFL, where repeated impact slowly degenerates the brain. Alzheimer's disease has been connected to brain injuries, and if a clear link is shown between Alzheimer's and operating weapons, the Pentagon would owe big down the line, especially if they had tracked blasts themselves. High-level Pentagon officials denied seeing this connection while nervously giggling.
The city of New Orleans will pay $13.3 million to settle lawsuits related to police killings after Hurricane Katrina hit the city. Mayor Mitch Landrieu said that the payments were made to represent the city taking responsibility, and also they have been legally forced to. The settlement covers 17 cases where police injured or killed residents of New Orleans. 5 officers were found guilty over the killings, and 4 of the officers were given jail sentences of over 30 years for either taking part in the shootings or covering up the evidence. But many of their sentences were reduced in 2013 due to prosecutorial misconduct. In 2011, the Justice Department found a, quote, clear pattern of unconstitutional use of force by the New Orleans Police Department. Mayor Landrieu apologized to the city, saying that it would probably happen again.
Russia has gone forward with establishing closer ties with Turkey, despite the killing of a Russian diplomat in Turkey on Monday. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that a combination of Russia and Turkey is the best way to end conflict in Syria. Russia has been aiding Syria with airstrikes against rebels in Aleppo, Syria's largest city. The U.S. has been ineffective at stopping the carnage in Syria, with Secretary of State John Kerry returning without making any progress. Russia viewed Monday's murder as a provocation meant to derail the talks and vowed to move forward. This comes at a time when the international community is increasingly isolating all 3 countries. Following an attempted coup over the summer, Turkey has been imprisoning journalists and anyone who opposes the government. And Russia has gone toe-to-toe with NATO and the UN, who have criticized Russia's role in the Syrian conflict. So it would seem only natural that the 3 countries would become friends. The heads of state celebrated their agreement in festive holiday fashion by roasting opponents of their regime over an open fire.
Researchers are criticizing a recent industry-funded study that questions dietary guidelines for sugar consumption. The paper published in the Annals of Internal Medicine says that there is low-quality evidence to suggest that a high sugar diet leads to diabetes and other illnesses. The World Health Organization's guidelines say that no more than 10% of our diet should contain added sugar. The paper threw these guidelines into doubt, but the paper's funding is what drew the researchers' skepticism. The International Life Science Institute, whose supporters include McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Mars, and Pepsi, funded it. Eric Henches, executive director of the organization, said the paper is not intended to undermine the science. Instead, the paper's purpose is to destroy science completely and replace it with sugar water. The paper's main argument hinged on an experiment from 2012 published in the New England Journal of Medicine. In the study, 224 overweight adults who regularly drank soda were tracked. One group refrained from drinking soda, while the other continued to guzzle the fizz. In the first year, the non-soda group had smaller increases in body mass index, but by the second year, there was no change. The paper's authors say that this proves that there are other factors besides sugar intake. The authors added that sugar has become a scapegoat for heart disease and diabetes. Critics said that this was an attempt to distract from proven science and compared these tactics to those of the tobacco industry. On CNBC yesterday, Grimace issued an impassioned defense of the paper's findings, but had to stop mid-statement when his high blood sugar caused him to start hallucinating.
Actor and professional train wreck Tom Arnold claims to have possession of outtakes from The Apprentice, which feature Donald Trump making racial and sexual slurs. Arnold says that he can't release the tapes because he signed a confidentiality agreement with the producers. But he says that the tapes will eventually see the light of day, especially since billionaire Mark Cuban offered a job to anyone who would provide the tapes. The Apprentice outtakes have taken on a mythological status among Trump opponents. Some claim that Trump habitually makes racist remarks, insults his sons, and generally acts like a terrible person. Others say that Trump regularly eats live elephants while groping multiple women at once. Despite the rumors, we may find out soon enough what the true, unfiltered Trump looks like. In a surprising turn of events, Trump announced on Twitter that he plans to air the tapes on Election Day to get his supporters real fired up.
And two 90s legends and a drunken karaoke staple are among the nominees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. Tupac Shakur, the West Coast gangsta rapper who was killed during the East Coast-West Coast feud Days of Hip Hop, has been named to the Hall. Pearl Jam, one of the only remaining bands left from the grunge days, will also be inducted. Joining the 90s era giants is Journey, an 80s throwback band best known for their song Don't Stop Believing, also known as the song you vaguely remember singing before blacking out. The last two inductions are Yes and the Electric Light Orchestra, better known as ELO, led by Jeff Lynne, who also played in the Traveling Wilburys alongside Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, and Roy Orbison. ELO was a top-selling band in an era where overstuffed concept albums were king. They're best known for their songs Don't Bring Me Down, Living Thing, and Evil Woman. Speaking of overstuffed concept albums, 70s band Yes was the king of prog indulgence, led by John Anderson. Yes wrote songs about space travel and yoga practitioners with a straight face and got away with it. The band is the poster boy for progressive rock excess, but they're still somehow pretty awesome in a living in your parents' basement kind of way. And finally, Nile Rodgers of the 70s funk band Chic will also receive an individual award, although he won't officially be inducted. Rodgers has been nominated 4 times to the Hall, but has never gotten the nod, despite being one of the era's most influential musicians. He should have gotten that Thug Life tattoo when he had the chance. This was Sean Madrid
And Luke Goodhart for 5 on 20 News. Next up, Sophie Gibson-Rush tells us what's what with local music this week. But first, let's watch a truly mesmerizing scene from the 1954 film White Christmas, because 'tis the season and I'm not a total Scrooge.
Mandy, what a gal! works a minister handy, and the jewelry's dandy. If we let him make a fee, he's got his rent to pay, so don't delay. It's not a day to linger. Here's a ring for your finger. It's a little humdinger. We advise to live in love and honor and obey. Before he gets away, make it handy, handy. The wedding chimes bring happy times for Mandy, Andy.
I'm Sophie Gibson Rush, here to talk with you about local music and what it's good for. Remember how video killed the radio star? Well, hipsters killed everything cool, except vinyl, that fancy wax that just won't die. The vinyl revolution is old news, I know. Like it or not, vinyl is out of the hands of obscurity-seeking hipsters and on the shelves at Barnes & Noble and Whole Foods. You've probably seen Taylor Swift's 1989 for sale at Urban Outfitters. At least that's where I bought it for $29.99. But it's not just bringing products back to create or capitalize on that nostalgia wave, because vinyl also creates a new experience for people who were born during the digital age. Millennials are hearing that snap, crackle, and pop for the first time. This year, the RIAA reported a 28-year high in LP and EP sales in the US. That was in April. Record Store Day is on April 22nd, and this unofficial holiday has generated such enthusiasm that it's prompted artists to release exclusive vinyl for the occasion. Meanwhile, this year, across the pond, records outsold digital downloads. This had British music bloggers wonky with joy, tossing crumpets in the air and shouting, "God save the Queen," until everyone realized why this statistic is so seductive. Records outsold digital downloads because no one downloads their music anymore. They freaking stream it. Also, records are expensive, a lot more expensive than digital downloads. So my question is this: going forward, how do we own music? In an interview with UA News, researcher Brian Moon pointed out an interesting conundrum for music consumers. He explains that earlier generations have a tendency to create links with ownership of music through LPs, cassette tapes, and CDs. But the millennial generation associates music and music ownership with the internet and cell phones. For them, the access to music via the internet results in an almost paralyzing effect of having so many choices. I think this is interesting and probably true in many instances and populations. But the record number of record sales this year points to an alternative narrative. You stream music, I stream music. It's easy, cheap, and nearly infinite. Streaming music is how most people satisfy that 21st century sense of voracious curiosity and the equally current need for instant gratification. But we're also gratified by intentional purchases of beautiful things, hence our love of records. Digital downloads fall in a far less sexy place somewhere in the middle. My sense is this: we spend money on records because they're tactile and they're beautiful. The large-scale artwork, the inserts, the crackly paper sleeve, the color and the texture of the vinyl, the warm sound are all irresistible. If we're spending our money on new release LPs at a show or in a record store, we want it to be gorgeous. We want it to be sexy. We want it to be art. The object must be nearly as important as the music, otherwise we'd just stream everything. And the object is meaningful because it's the vessel for the music. Over the years in Tucson, there have been many beautiful, well-packaged vinyl releases. We're an art town, after all. This year was no exception. Haboob released one of my favorites, an incredible fiery red sunburst vinyl. Sitza, Orquesta Mendoza, and Human Behavior all released records with beautiful album art. Lenguas Largas put out the rest of the enchilada with a folding album sleeve that opens into a Chutes and Ladders style board game featuring the members of the band. So cool. And American Monoxide is another great example of an unconventional record release. Dimitri Manos released one record, Web Content, in collaboration with several different local labels, and each one put its own spin on the release. Baby Gas Mask, Wooden Tooth, Hocus Pocus, People in a Position to Know, and Manos' own Soiled Gold each put their stamp on the release, with unique packaging or special add-ons. Speaking of nonconformers, Giant Sand released the first volume of its vinyl box set, which, when complete, will contain all of their records re-released on vinyl. Unlike the typical career retrospective box set, which usually organizes records chronologically, Giant Sand is organizing the box set alphabetically by album title. So instead of experiencing the band's progression as a linear narrative, you jump around through the various stages of the band's life without a sense of structure. Hey guys, time's just a construct anyway. Finally, Crystal Radio released several extraordinary takes on the ordinary vinyl format. Their album, Ghost in You, can be purchased at $25 with a beautiful front and back cover and insert artwork by Daniel Martin Diaz and Amelia Poe. Or for $50, you can get the special edition Crystal vinyl. Or for $350, you can get this nifty bit of bark. Daniel and Paula really take this vinyl as art idea to the next level. But no discussion of vinyl as art would be relevant without mentioning lathe cuts. The business and the process deserve a segment all their own, but suffice it to say that Mike Dixon and his cohorts have enough mad science at their fingertips to make visual art out of music. Mike cuts each record one by hand and creates, as the website describes them, musical artifacts. Lathe Cuts takes many shapes, colors, and forms. Crystal Radio, Golden Boots, and numerous nationally famous bands like the Flaming Lips, Ariel Pink, and Microphones used Lathe Cuts to create limited edition pieces of listenable art, like that musical tree you just saw a moment ago. If the trend continues, this is how we will own music. Newly released records will become more imaginative. We will continue to buy used records. Those aren't going anywhere. And streaming will be our primary tool until something new knocks it down the digital pyramid. Records will remain popular because they're a treat. They engage almost every human sense, except taste. Don't put records in your mouth, okay? We can hold them, we can look through them, we can display them, we can listen to them. $29.99 is pretty economical for the amount of happiness they bring. 'Tis the season, y'all. The season of consumerism, yes, but also of gift giving. If you want to give a great gift, give a record. Help out a local record store, help out a local band, and give someone an audiovisual piece of art. As always, Tucson, go to concerts, consume local music, and support your friends. Here's a super quick rundown of what's happening this week. Tonight at Flycatcher, Miss Abysmal, Low Life, and Ryan Shavira play. Tomorrow at Congress, Fox Bodies, the X-Bats, and the Jag plug in for some good old-fashioned rock and roll. Friday at Congress, Hans Hutchinson, Amy Rude, and Loveland roll in for a Sonoran Christmas. Then it's Christmas all weekend long. Once you've recovered, check out Tom Waldbank and Joe Novelli of the Cloud Walls at Sky Bar on Tuesday evening. Have a happy holiday, and I'll leave you with this extended warm fuzzy of a video. Enjoy Birds and Arrows' take on Ave Maria wrapped in tinsel.